If you've been following the American sports media lately, you'd have noticed JJ Redick's meteoric rise to prominence. His insightful analysis and player-first perspectives on First Take and other platforms have been refreshing for NBA fans. The fact that he gets his point across without having to shout like some of his colleagues makes it even better. And if you're wondering how he's able to do this, it's because JJ knows his basketball. I mean, you wouldn't expect any less from a guy who retired as a 15-year veteran and one of the most efficient shooting guards of his generation. For context, throughout his time in the league, JJ averaged 44.7% shooting from the field and 41.5% from downtown. But don't let this fool you, he actually wasn't all that good. At least not as good as his stats suggest. Sure, he had some good moments in his career, but there are certainly not enough to qualify him as an NBA great. In fact, what if I told you that JJ was just a glorified role player at best? I know that's a big claim to make, but if you watch this video to the end, you might just agree with me. Much like his latest podcast partner, JJ Redick was a high school basketball prodigy. He was listed as a 5-star recruit by Scout.com and the second best shooting guard in the entire country back in 2002. But unlike LeBron James, JJ's talents weren't explosive enough to send him straight into the NBA from high school. So he joined Duke University's basketball team, where he continued to show his qualities as a talented hooper. Leading the Blue Devils to the Sweet 16 in his rookie season was just the start. Soon he became a college hoop sensation. As a freshman, he averaged 15 points, 2.5 rebounds, and 2 assists per game while hitting 40% from downtown. But just when it seemed like JJ's college career was about to hit another level in his sophomore year, he came agonizingly close to announcing his retirement. Usually, when college players decide to quit, it's mostly due to a lack of talent or playing time. But JJ's case was different. He was the heartbeat of an impressive Duke team and one of the most talented collegiate players at the time. So why would he want to quit? You see, JJ knew he was good, and he wasn't afraid to rub it in the faces of his opponents. This made him one of the most hated college players at the time. Playing for Duke only made it worse. Historically, rival fans hate the team because they win a lot, and with JJ now leading the winning charge, he too was bound to get some of that hatred. With every game, the limits of the hatred were pushed further, and eventually it became personal. Fans started to say demeaning things about his family, including his sister, who was only 12 at the time. At the height of the abuse, JJ was getting up to 80 hate calls every night. That's enough to make anyone crack, and for all his hard guy antics, JJ was no exception. Despite leading Duke to the Final Four, where they lost to UConn in 2004, JJ suffered a mini decline in his fitness and performance. This, combined with the hate from rival fans, nearly made him quit the sport. But thankfully, he had a change of heart just in time for the 2005 season. Averaging a solid 21.8 points per game, he snagged multiple accolades, including ACC Player of the Year and the Rupp Trophy. Fast forward to 2006, and JJ was at it again, scooping up those same awards for the second year running. This time, though, he added another feather to his cap, winning the National College Player of the Year. With records like this, you'd think NBA teams would be drooling over him, and he would be taken in the top 5. Well, not exactly, because JJ remained on the board until he was drafted as the 11th pick by the Orlando Magic. JJ would go on to play 15 seasons in the league, while averaging 12.8 points and shooting nearly 45% from the field and 42% from downtown. Now, if I did a quick poll and asked you guys to rate JJ's NBA career before mentioning these stats and the vast amount of knowledge he's displayed as a sports analyst, most of you would rank him as an all-star caliber player or an NBA great. Well, if you're in this category, I'm sorry to inform you that you're wrong. Yes, I know you must be in shock, but please allow me to explain. JJ was a sharpshooter and solid role player, no doubt about that. But thinking of him as all-star material or even an NBA great, you are completely mistaken. Despite his reputation as one of the purest shooters in college basketball history, JJ's scouting report was modest. His shooting skills and basketball IQ were off the charts, but his defense, athleticism, and playmaking left a lot to be desired. Some of these limitations were evident in his first 3 seasons in the league, where he barely cracked 5 points per game. His stats eventually improved, and he went on to play 4 more seasons for the Orlando Magic before joining the Milwaukee Bucks in 2013. JJ's time with the Bucks was disappointing, and he would join the LA Clippers just 5 months later. Averaging 15.7 points per game, JJ played his best basketball and established himself as one of the best point guards in the league during his time in LA. Between 2015 and 2019, he consistently ranked among the top 15 point guards in the league in terms of productivity. For context, his stats were only toppled by players like James Harden, Bradley Beal, Steph Curry, Klay Thompson, Dwayne Wade, and a few others. So it's safe to say he was undoubtedly one of the best shooters of his generation. Interestingly, his numbers also compare favorably with those of some of the greatest players in NBA history. For instance, JJ ranks 20th on the all-time list for the most three-points scored in NBA history. This puts him ahead of greats like Steve Nash, Carmelo Anthony, and Tim Hardaway. In fact, among the top 20, only 6 players have a higher three-point shooting percentage than JJ, and they're all heavyweights. I mean, we're talking about the likes of Steph Curry, Dirk Nowitzki, Ray Allen, Reggie Miller, LeBron James, and Kevin Durant. You see, one thing that all of these players have in common is that they were high-volume first options for their teams, and that's something that JJ never was even at the peak of his NBA career. Despite his impressive shooting stats, JJ didn't win any personal honors. He wasn't even named to the All-Star team throughout his 15 years of playing in the league. That's exactly what I mean when I say he was not an elite player. Don't get me wrong, this is not me hating JJ Redick, it's just facts. And what if I told you that JJ himself knew he was going to be a role player in the NBA? Shocking, right? Well, here's what he told the Charlotte Observer back in 2005. I think I'll be a role player, like 80% of the players in the league are. I don't expect to be a star, I'll just shoot, be a team player. Now, some people may interpret this as a lack of ambition on JJ's part, but it's not. The man was just being true to himself. He knew he wasn't generational talent like Michael Jordan or LeBron James, but he played to his strength and built a respectable career. That in itself is a huge achievement, given that only 1.2% of collegiate players make it into the NBA. What's even more impressive is how the 15-year NBA veteran has become one of America's favorite sports analysts since he retired in 2021. But what most people don't realize is that he's been at it for a while. JJ's entry into the podcasting space was back in 2016 when he started hosting the Vertical podcast with JJ Redick. Ultimately, this made him a trailblazer for all the current athletes doing their own podcasts these days. And so far, he's brought some much-needed sanity to the American sports media circus, which has suffered so much from poor narratives and ridiculous opinions in recent years. And perhaps that explains why he's always clashing with a certain A-list sports analyst. Don't ask me who. Anyway, in recognition of the great work he's done in his short career as a sports journo, JJ was nominated for a Sports Emmy as Emerging On-Air Talent in 2023. He didn't win it, but after his latest collaboration with LeBron James for the Mind the Game podcast, you feel like it's only a matter of time before he starts to bag major hardware. In fact, I'm actually tempted to think that JJ might have a better career in sports media than he did as a basketball player. That's another controversial take, and I'll probably need a whole video to explain myself. But right now, I'd like to pass the mic to you. What do you make of JJ's NBA career? Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below.